So Meghan McCain has a problem with the Republican Party. Her problem is the messaging, and they're not being strong enough about what they stand for. Take a look.
I think it's a really interesting time for the Republican Party right now, and quite frankly, I think we'll figure it out amongst ourselves. I don't need any Democrat or anybody on the left telling me what to do or how to think. We will figure it out internally amongst ourselves. I will say there's some interesting tea leaves to read as we're, I guess, creating a funeral this morning for the Republican Party. Marjorie Taylor Greene had absolute insane gangbusters fundraising in the first 3 months of being a congresswoman. She raised $3.2 million in comparison to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who raised $728,000. So Marjorie Taylor Greene raised 5 times more the amount of money than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Kevin McCarthy just came out. There's also huge fundraising numbers with the RNC and money going to down-ballot candidates coming up in the midterm elections. I wouldn't be so quick to count Republicans out. When you're talking about more and more people going to independence, that's very important and significant, and I do agree that there's a lot of Republicans who are turned off by the Trump administration, but in a lot of elections in this country, when it comes right down to it, we live in a two-party country. So which lever the person decides to pull, if it's someone who left the Trump party but is still leaning Republican and wants to vote for a down-ballot Republican candidate, I still think there's a lot of hope for down-ballot candidates.
Okay, so that's enough of that. So hey man, our party might be bleeding support, but look at our great fundraising numbers that insane people are bringing in. They're insane, reactionary, but look at all the money. Of course, that's all they care about in the money. Right. Hey, look how much that crazy lady raised for the Republican Party. You realize she's getting money because she is insane, right? And that she's getting a lot of donations from your base because they're also insane. They believe in these crazy things. Again, Marjorie Taylor Greene is QAnon congresswoman. She's standing with Matt Gaetz. Okay. And basically, her only thing is she wants to own the libs and spread like QAnon conspiracies. She has no real ideas. She thinks that Jewish laser beams could be starting forest fires. Using her as an example of, hey, don't count out Republicans because crazy people are making money and they're crushing the fundraising. I don't think that's the message that you want to put out to the world. You really want to put out that message to the world? Is that what you're trying to, is that like a flex? Is that like some sort of brag here? Look at all the crazy people. Oh, they're crushing it. Okay. All right. But here's the thing. Her party is reactionary. But that's really all they are. They're reactionary, and now they're really open about it. And the voters love it. Their voters love it. Most of the American people do not love it. And while it is true that there are some Republicans that have been turned off of Donald Trump, they still vote for Republicans anyway. Yeah. Hey, you remember the Lincoln Project? Remember the anti-Trump, never Trump Republicans? Yeah, it turns out that their videos and their takedowns, savage takedowns of Donald Trump, which were actually, I think, were pretty great. It turns out didn't really do anything to reduce the number of Republicans that vote for Republican candidates for Donald Trump. Yeah, it actually ended up helping them, or at least it didn't hurt them at all. And so you got to kind of wonder, like, why would you reach out to Republicans? Why would you expect Republicans to do the right thing when they live in this bubble? They live in this reality where lib's bad, can't vote for a lib. Even if I don't like Donald Trump, I still kind of like him. Yeah. So, there's that. It shows that too, if you're uncomfortable with Donald Trump and you're uncomfortable with the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts of the world, okay? And the Matt Gaetz of the world, turns out happens to be pretty unpopular within Republican circles. It still shows that none of that is a deal breaker for y'all. None of what was said, none of what was done is a deal breaker for you. You're still going to end up voting for Republicans because gotta own the libs. Gotta own the libs. Interesting. But there's more here, okay? So now she's going to talk about what she wants to see from her party going forward. You're going to love this.
Andrew Breitbart, who is a figure on the right who passed away about 10 years ago. He's nothing like the way his website is now. The name Breitbart has been turned into this sort of extreme Trump organization, but he was really compelling in what his message was when he was alive, which was that conservatives and Republicans have to also fight the culture war on the ground up. And we have, quite frankly, done a really piss poor job of explaining why we're conservative, why we believe in small government, why the ideals of William F. Buckley and Ronald Reagan are a better way to run the government, explaining our successes. Unfortunately, the more radical elements of our party get the most attention, and the most psychotic and crazy, the Matt Gaetzes of the party, end up sucking up all the oxygen, and all of us have to do a better job. And I say this as a conservative who's on mainstream media. We have to start fighting these battles in uncomfortable spaces. It can't only be on Newsmax and on Fox News. We have to go into spaces where people don't like us and explain and proselytize and get people to understand why we believe what we believe, because right now, all of you are right, we are losing the culture war.
Culture wars. Yeah. Hey, well, that's the big idea. Let's fight more culture war stuff. Oh, that'll work. Yeah, that's great. I love how she says, well, we've got to go into spaces where people don't like us. Well, that's funny, because wouldn't those be, I mean, the opposite of that be safe spaces? I mean, she just admitted that the Republican Party exists in a safe space. Ironic. So ironic. But yeah, that's her biggest issue, the culture war. And so she wants to continue to fight the ridiculous culture wars. Not, of course, making American people's lives materially better, which, by the way, Ronald Reagan, as she mentioned, did not do. In fact, Ronald Reagan was the start of American decline in the modern era. He crushed unions, which, of course, eroded worker power, lowering wages and benefits for the average American worker. Now to the point, of course, where inequality is at record highs. Most Americans, half-full Americans, can't afford a $400 bill. Emergency, where you have record numbers of wealth and income inequality. You have Jeff Bezos is a billionaires, is an absolute, like, he's got all the money. He's got a lot of that money. And they all do, all of these different billionaires. And most people, again, don't have a whole lot to themselves. They have difficulty buying homes. They have difficulty paying for their college or paying off their student loans. And you got all these billionaires, but they don't pay their fair share in taxes. And that's really the effect of a conservative policy, of conservative economic policies. So you've got more billionaires and less for the rest of us. But here's the thing. The Republican Party has no explanation of what they actually stand for, because they don't really stand for anything. They are reactionary. That's all they are. They don't have policies other than tax cuts for the rich, or their donors, of course, more guns, less regulation for corporations, businesses, and then they have the culture wars. And that's essentially it. The culture war is banning abortion, ending birth control, rolling back women and LGBTQ plus rights, and of course, spending more money on the military because they're perpetually afraid of other people, and then, of course, throwing money at endless wars. That's right now the mainstream conservative ideology, and has been for a long time. And it turns out that a lot of this is not popular with the American people. No, most of the American people are not in favor of these policies. And so this is why Republicans constantly talk about the cancel culture. And so you've got Dr. Seuss and canceling Coca-Cola, Delta, not for, of course, Coca-Cola's, for example, exploited business practices, massive subsidies, and the fact that it's filled with nothing more than deliciously addictive corn syrup, which is slowly killing us, by the way. But no, they hate Coke because it turns out that Coke is like voting laws, anti-voting laws are not cool, man. You shouldn't do that. This is what the Republican Party is. This is a bunch of reactionary, freedom-hating ghouls. And Meghan McCain can't explain it because she's either too stupid to realize it, or she knows exactly what the Republican Party stands for, which is nothing, and is admitting it and trying to say, well, you know what we should do? focus on the culture wars, which is just nothing more than a gigantic distraction, because we don't have anything that's going to help the American people. What side you take on that, either being too stupid or knowing exactly what's going on? I'll leave that up to you to decide. I'm just offering the two options. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.